attention to this CCTV footage captured in broad daylight on a remote forest trail. Look at the center of the frame. See that figure crawling on all fours down that dirt path? That's not an animal. That's a human being, moving in a way that makes your skin crawl. Watch the posture, the way the arms and legs are positioned, the deliberate movement forward. This is someone who can't, or won't, stand up and walk like a normal person. Now here's what makes this image so disturbing. When park rangers first reviewed this footage, they had no idea who this person was or why they were crawling through the woods in the middle of the day. But this single frame of CCTV footage would become the key piece of evidence in unraveling one of the most twisted attempted murder cases in Oregon's history. Because the person crawling through those woods, they were supposed to be dead. You know that feeling when you think you know someone completely, when you've built a life with them, shared everything? For Ryan Castellano, that feeling was shattered one morning in the woods when he realized the person he trusted most in the world wanted him dead. Ryan was 32 years old in the spring of 2016, living what looked like a pretty good life in Salem, Oregon. He worked as a pharmaceutical sales representative for a mid-sized biotech company, pulling in decent money, driving a nice car. He'd been married to his wife, Jennifer, for 6 years. They'd met at a medical conference in Portland back in 2008, got engaged within a year, and seemed like one of those couples that just worked, you know? Friends said they rarely fought. Jennifer worked as a dental hygienist at a practice downtown. They had a nice 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, talked about having kids someday. But here's the thing about seemingly perfect lives. Sometimes they're just good at hiding the cracks. Ryan had a routine. Every Saturday morning, he'd go for a run on the Ridgewood Trail System, this network of hiking and jogging paths about 20 minutes outside Salem. He'd been doing it for years. Rain or shine, every Saturday, 7 a.m., he'd be out there. Jennifer never joined him. She wasn't really the outdoorsy type, preferred sleeping in on weekends. And that predictability, that reliable routine, it was about to be weaponized against him. But before we get to that morning in the woods, there's someone else you need to know about. His name was Derek Sanderson, and he was Ryan's business partner. They'd started working together in 2014 when Derek joined the same pharmaceutical company. The two men became friends quickly, grabbing beers after work, talking about maybe starting their own consulting firm someday. Derek was 35, divorced, the kind of guy who seemed charming at first, but had this edge to him that made some people uncomfortable. Ryan didn't see it. Or maybe he just didn't want to. What Ryan definitely didn't see was that Derek and Jennifer had been having an affair since late 2015. Let me paint you a picture of how this whole thing started to fall apart. It's early August 2016, and Ryan's at work when he gets a weird email from his company's HR department. Something about discrepancies in his expense reports, missing receipts, transactions that don't match up. Ryan's confused because he's always been meticulous about that stuff. He asks to see the reports they're talking about, and that's when things get really strange. There are charges he doesn't recognize, purchases he never made. Someone's been accessing his account, submitting fake expenses, making it look like Ryan's been embezzling money from the company. Now, put yourself in Ryan's position for a second. You're looking at what appears to be evidence that you've been stealing from your employer, except you know you haven't done it. So who has? Ryan starts digging. He changes all his passwords, checks his home computer, looks through his email history, and that's when he finds something interesting in his digital files. Login attempts from an IP address he doesn't recognize, made in the middle of the day when he was at client meetings. He doesn't tell Jennifer about this yet. Something in his gut tells him to keep it quiet. Instead, he contacts a private cybersecurity consultant and asks them to trace the IP address. The answer comes back 3 days later. The login attempts came from the dental office where Jennifer works during hours when she would have been at the front desk with access to computers. Ryan's world starts tilting. Why would his wife be accessing his work accounts? Why would she be creating fake expense reports that make him look like a criminal? He doesn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, he does something he never thought he'd do. He starts watching her, checking her phone when she's in the shower, looking at her text messages. And that's how he discovers the affair with Derek. The messages between Jennifer and Derek go back months, hundreds of them, and they're not just romantic, they're planning something. There are discussions about Ryan's life insurance policy, a $750,000 policy that Jennifer would inherit if Ryan died. There are messages about how it needs to look natural, and the embezzlement story gives us cover. Ryan reads these messages on August 17, 2016, sitting in his car in a grocery store parking lot while Jennifer thinks he's inside shopping. He feels physically sick. Here's what made it even more horrific. They'd been setting this up for months. The fake expense reports weren't random. They were building a narrative. Ryan Castellano, successful pharmaceutical rep, secretly embezzling from his company, overwhelmed by guilt and shame. A man who might be driven to suicide. That was the story they were constructing. Ryan makes copies of everything. Every text message, every email, every fake expense report. He saves it all to a flash drive. And then he does something that probably saved his life. He tells his brother. Michael Castellano was 2 years older than Ryan, worked as an attorney in Eugene. When Ryan shows him the evidence on August 19th, Michael's immediate advice is clear. Go to the police right now. But Ryan hesitates. He wants more proof. He wants to understand the full scope of what they're planning. Michael argues with him, but Ryan's stubborn. He says he'll give it a few more days, see what else he can find out, and then they'll go to the authorities together. That decision almost costs Ryan his life. On the evening of August 22nd, 2016, Jennifer makes Ryan his favorite dinner: chicken parmesan, garlic bread, a nice bottle of red wine she says she picked up that afternoon. They eat together at their dining room table. Ryan notices she barely touches her own food, keeps encouraging him to finish his wine. He drinks it, and within 20 minutes he starts feeling wrong, dizzy, his vision blurring at the edges, his limbs going heavy. He tries to stand up and falls. Jennifer's face swims in front of him, and she's saying something, but he can't quite hear it. The last thing Ryan remembers before losing consciousness is Jennifer making a phone call and saying, "He's out. Come over now." When Ryan wakes up, everything's wrong. He's not in his house anymore. He's outside, lying on dirt and leaves, and there's daylight, bright, disorienting daylight filtering through tree branches overhead. He's freezing cold despite the sunshine. His body feels strange, disconnected, like his limbs aren't quite responding to his brain's commands properly. He tries to stand up and immediately falls. His legs won't support his weight. The drug, whatever Jennifer gave him, is still in his system, affecting his coordination, his balance, his muscle control. That's when he hears voices nearby. Ryan forces himself to stay still, to listen. Through the fog in his brain, he recognizes them, Jennifer and Derek. They're maybe 30 or 40 feet away, and they're arguing in harsh whispers. Derek's voice, "This is taking too long. He should be further in by now." Jennifer, "The drug dose was perfect. He'll come around soon, confused, disoriented. Then we finish it." "What if someone sees us? It's Saturday morning. The main trails are busy, but nobody comes this deep in. We're safe." Ryan's blood runs ice cold despite the sedative in his system. They're planning to kill him right now, in these woods, and stage it to look like a running accident. Maybe a fall, a head injury, something that would explain his death. The fake embezzlement story would come out afterward. Desperate man, guilty conscience, tragic accident while trying to clear his head. It was all planned out. He knows he has to move, but he can't stand. His legs are useless, still affected by whatever drug is coursing through his veins. So Ryan does the only thing he can do. He starts crawling, slowly, quietly, away from those voices. His hands find purchase on the dirt trail. He pulls himself forward, inches at a time, trying not to make noise. Behind him, he can still hear Jennifer and Derek talking, their voices getting a little louder now, probably thinking he's still unconscious. Ryan's crawling down what feels like a hiking trail, using his arms to drag himself forward. The drug makes everything feel surreal, nightmarish. He doesn't know where he's going. He just knows he has to get away. The morning sun is bright overhead, which should make him feel safer, but somehow makes it worse. They can see him if they look his way. And then he hears it. Footsteps behind him, moving faster now. They've realized he's gone. Where the hell is he? Derek's voice, panicked now. He can't have gone far. Find him! Ryan's moving faster now, adrenaline cutting through some of the sedative's effects. He rounds a bend in the trail, his body low to the ground, moving on all fours like an animal. He doesn't realize it, but he's just crawled directly past a motion-activated CCTV camera mounted to a tree, part of the Park Service's wildlife monitoring system. The camera captures a single frame, a man in light-colored clothing, crawling down the trail in broad daylight, his posture unnatural, desperate. Ryan keeps moving, keeps crawling, until he can't hear them anymore. Ryan keeps crawling until the drug starts to wear off enough that he can stand, though he's shaky, stumbling like he's drunk. He has no idea how long he's been moving, could be 30 minutes, could be 2 hours. Time feels broken. He finds himself on a different trail, one he doesn't recognize. He's completely disoriented, lost in a state forest, and somewhere behind him are 2 people who want him dead. He walks, stumbles, sometimes falls, and has to crawl again. His phone is gone, probably taken from him while he was unconscious. He's wearing the clothes he had on at dinner the night before, now covered in dirt and leaves. When he finally hears the sound of cars in the distance, he follows it. By 11:45 a.m. on August 23rd, Ryan stumbles out onto a county highway about 6 miles from where he usually parks for his Saturday runs. A woman driving a Honda Civic spots him, pulls over. Ryan must look insane, covered in dirt, scratched up, barely able to stand straight. The woman is scared at first, thinks maybe he's on drugs, but Ryan manages to speak clearly enough to ask her to call his brother. She hands him her cell phone, and Ryan calls Michael. Michael Castellano answers on the second ring, and when Ryan tells him what happened, there's a long pause. Then Michael says, "Stay right where you are. I'm calling the police, and I'm coming to get you. Don't move." Michael calls the Salem Police Department while he's driving. He tells them his brother was drugged and almost murdered by his wife and her lover, that Ryan is currently on Highway 22 near mile marker 34, and that police need to get there immediately before Jennifer and Derek realize Ryan escaped and try to run. Detective Lisa Moreno catches the case. When she first hears the story over the radio, husband drugged by wife, left in woods to die, managed to escape, she thinks it sounds almost too dramatic to be real. But Michael Castellano is a respected attorney, and he's insistent. Moreno dispatches officers to pick up Ryan and sends 2 more units to the Castellano residence in Salem. Ryan is picked up at 12:20 p.m. and brought to Salem General Hospital. Blood tests confirm high levels of rohypnol in his system, a powerful sedative, the same drug sometimes used in sexual assaults, enough to incapacitate someone for hours. The attending physician tells detectives that the dose Ryan received could have been lethal if he'd been given just a bit more. Meanwhile, at 12:35 p.m., officers arrive at the Castellano home. Jennifer answers the door, and according to the police reports, she seems surprised, confused. She tells them Ryan went for his usual Saturday morning run around 7 a.m., and she expected him back by 9 a.m. When he didn't return, she says she called his cell phone several times but got no answer. She was just about to file a missing person report. The officers ask if they can search the house. Jennifer agrees, which turns out to be a massive mistake on her part. In the kitchen, they find 2 wine glasses in the sink. One has traces of red wine and rohypnol residue. In the trash, they find an empty pill bottle. Rohypnol, prescribed to Jennifer Castellano for severe anxiety, filled just 2 weeks earlier. The prescription should have had 20 pills remaining. It's empty. In the garage, they find Derek Sanderson's car, which Jennifer tries to explain by saying he stopped by early that morning to borrow some tools. The officers ask where Derek is now. Jennifer's story starts to fall apart. She says he left an hour ago. The officers ask for his number. When they call, it goes straight to voicemail. At 1:15 p.m., Jennifer Castellano is brought to the police station for questioning. She's not under arrest yet, just being asked to clarify some things. Detective Moreno sits across from her in interview room 2 and asks her to walk through the timeline of that morning. Jennifer sticks to her story. Ryan left for his run at 7 a.m. She hasn't seen him since. She's worried about him. Moreno asks about the wine glasses. Jennifer says they had wine with dinner the night before, nothing unusual. Moreno asks about the Rohypnol prescription. Jennifer says she has anxiety, her doctor prescribed it, she takes it as needed. And you needed 20 pills in 2 weeks? Moreno asks. Jennifer hesitates, says she spilled the bottle, lost some pills down the drain. That's when Moreno tells her that Ryan is alive, that he's at the hospital, and that he's told them everything. Jennifer's face goes white. She asks for a lawyer and stops talking. But here's the thing, they still need to find Derek Sanderson, and they need physical evidence placing both Jennifer and Derek in those woods that morning. That's where the investigation shifts to the trail cameras. The Oregon State Parks Department maintains a network of wildlife monitoring cameras throughout the Ridgewood Trail system. These are motion-activated CCTV cameras designed to capture images of deer, elk, bear, and other wildlife. The cameras record timestamps, and the data is reviewed weekly by park rangers. On August 24th, Detective Moreno contacts the Parks Department and requests all footage from cameras in the Ridgewood system from the morning of August 23rd. She's looking for anything that might show Jennifer and Derek in those woods. What she gets back is something she never expected. At 9:17 a.m. on August 23rd, one of the cameras captured an image that made everyone in the investigation stop cold. It showed a person crawling on all fours down a dirt trail in broad daylight. The posture was unnatural, desperate. The timestamp placed it the morning after Jennifer had drugged him, roughly 14 hours later, showing Ryan still under the drug's effects as he desperately tried to escape. This was Ryan, still under the influence of the sedative, trying to escape. But there was more footage. A camera positioned half a mile away captured two people walking quickly through the woods at 9:32 a.m., a woman and a man, both wearing baseball caps, moving with purpose. The image quality wasn't perfect, but forensic analysts were able to enhance it. The woman was Jennifer Castellano. The man was Derek Sanderson. They were hunting Ryan through those woods. The CCTV footage changed everything. This wasn't just Ryan's word against Jennifer's anymore. This was documented proof that everything he'd said was true. On August 25, 2016, Derek Sanderson was arrested at a hotel in Eugene, about 60 miles south of Salem. He checked in the night before using a fake name, paying cash, clearly trying to lay low while he figured out his next move. When police searched his hotel room, they found a burner phone with text messages to Jennifer from the previous day. Did they find him yet? And we need to get our stories straight. Derek tried to play it cool at first, said he had no idea what police were talking about. But when Detective Moreno showed him the CCTV image of him and Jennifer in the woods, his face changed. He asked for a lawyer and stopped talking. Jennifer, meanwhile, had already lawyered up. Her attorney advised her to say nothing, which is exactly what she did. But the evidence kept mounting. Forensic teams processed Jennifer and Derek's cell phones and found months of planning. The text messages Ryan had discovered were just the beginning. Here's what investigators pieced together. Jennifer and Derek's affair had started in November 2015. By January 2016, they were talking about leaving their respective spouses and starting a life together. But there was a problem. Money. Jennifer and Derek both had decent jobs, but nothing that would support the lifestyle they wanted. That's when they started talking about Ryan's life insurance policy. The $750,000 policy had been purchased in 2012 when Ryan and Jennifer bought their house. Jennifer was the sole beneficiary. In February 2016, the text messages between Jennifer and Derek shifted from romantic to calculating. They started researching ways to kill someone that would look like an accident or suicide. They considered a car accident but decided it was too unpredictable. They considered making it look like Ryan had died while running, maybe a heart attack, but they couldn't figure out how to induce one without leaving evidence. Then in March 2016, Jennifer's dentist office got a new patient, a middle-aged woman who mentioned during her appointment that she'd had to stop taking her anti-anxiety medication because it made her too drowsy. The medication was Rohypnol. Jennifer filed that information away. In April, Jennifer went to her own doctor complaining of severe anxiety. The doctor prescribed Rohypnol. Jennifer filled the prescription but never took a single pill. She was stockpiling them. Meanwhile, Derek was working on the embezzlement angle. He had access to Ryan's work accounts through their shared company system. In May and June 2016, Derek began creating false expense reports in Ryan's name, making it look like Ryan was stealing from the company. The plan was elegant: build a narrative of a man under severe financial and legal stress, then stage his suicide in the woods during one of his Saturday morning runs. Jennifer would play the grieving widow, collect the life insurance, and after a respectable amount of time, she and Derek would be together. They set the plan in motion on August 22nd. Jennifer drugged Ryan's wine at dinner with a massive dose of Rohypnol, enough to knock him unconscious for hours. Derek came over after Ryan was out, and together they drove Ryan to the Ridgewood Trail system. They carried him deep into the woods, to a spot far from the main paths. The plan was to wait for him to regain partial consciousness, confused and disoriented, then stage an accident, maybe a fatal fall, a blow to the head that could be explained by stumbling on the uneven trail. But they made a critical mistake. They underestimated Ryan's survival instinct and his physical conditioning. When Ryan regained consciousness earlier than they expected and started crawling away, they panicked. They chased after him but lost him in the dense forest. And they never considered that the trail cameras meant to monitor wildlife would capture their entire crime in progress. The forensic evidence was overwhelming. The Rohypnol in Ryan's blood matched Jennifer's prescription. The CCTV footage showed Ryan crawling through the woods and Jennifer and Derek hunting him. The text messages detailed the entire conspiracy. The fake expense reports had Derek's digital fingerprints all over them. On September 2, 2016, both Jennifer Castellano and Derek Sanderson were formally charged. Derek decided to cut a deal. In exchange for testifying against Jennifer, prosecutors agreed to recommend a lighter sentence. His testimony filled in all the remaining gaps in the case. Derek told the jury that the whole thing had been Jennifer's idea from the start. According to him, she'd been the one researching murder methods. She'd been the one who suggested framing Ryan for embezzlement. She'd been the one who insisted they stage it as a suicide or accident. Jennifer's defense attorney tried to argue the opposite, that Derek had manipulated Jennifer, that she was a victim of coercive control, but the jury didn't buy it. The text messages showed both of them as willing, enthusiastic participants in the plot. The trial lasted 3 weeks in November 2016. Ryan testified, walking the jury through the discovery of the affair, finding the text messages, being drugged at dinner, waking up in the woods, crawling for his life while hearing his wife and her lover hunting him. When prosecutors showed the CCTV image of Ryan crawling down that trail, several jurors visibly reacted. It was such a visceral, disturbing image, a human being reduced to crawling like an animal because the people who were supposed to love him had poisoned him and left him to die. The defense tried to create reasonable doubt, suggesting maybe Ryan had taken the drugs himself, maybe the whole thing was an elaborate setup to frame Jennifer. But they couldn't explain away the CCTV footage showing Jennifer and Derek in those woods, couldn't explain the months of text messages planning the murder, couldn't explain the fake expense reports. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found Jennifer Castellano guilty on all counts. 2 weeks later, Derek Sanderson pleaded guilty as part of his cooperation agreement. Ryan Castellano survived something most people can't even imagine, being hunted through the woods by the person he'd promised to spend his life with. In interviews after the trial, he talked about how the betrayal was almost worse than the physical danger. He'd loved Jennifer, trusted her completely, and she'd been planning his death for months while smiling at him across the dinner table. The Ridgewood Trail case had a profound impact on how law enforcement thinks about attempted murder cases involving intimate partners. The level of premeditation, the careful planning, the willingness to watch someone suffer, it showed how deadly these situations can become when financial motive combines with infidelity. Ryan has since remarried and moved out of Oregon. He doesn't talk publicly about the case much anymore, but in a victim impact statement read at Jennifer's sentencing, he said something that stuck with a lot of people. "I survived because I refused to give up, even when my own body wouldn't cooperate. I crawled through those woods because I wanted to live. And I'm here today because somebody installed a camera meant to watch animals, and it watched a crime instead." The CCTV footage became the centerpiece of the prosecution's case, the undeniable proof that everything Ryan said was true. Without that image of him crawling down that trail, without that timestamp, it might have been much harder to convict Jennifer and Derek. Technology meant to observe wildlife ended up documenting attempted murder. Jennifer Castellano was convicted of attempted murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit murder, assault with a deadly weapon, the Rohypnol, and insurance fraud. She was sentenced to 25 years in state prison without the possibility of parole for 20 years. Derek Sanderson pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and fraud. In exchange for his cooperation, he received a sentence of 15 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Ryan Castellano still hikes, though not alone anymore, and not at Ridgewood Trail. He says he'll never forget the feeling of crawling through those woods, fighting for his life against the drugs in his system and the two people hunting him. But he also won't forget the moment he found out that a trail camera had captured proof of everything he'd survived. Sometimes, he says, justice needs a witness. And sometimes that witness is just a camera in the woods recording what no one was supposed to see.